going in search of traces of red history.
他自己先前呢在铁丝网那里爬上去，把那个铁丝网也让战士们从他的背后跑进去。
Witnessing a solemn flag-raising ceremony where Hainan's first ever red flag was raised. And luxuriating in Wuzhishan's landscape over a nice cup of Wuzhishan red tea. Join me as I embark on this reddest of journeys.
"没有共产党就没有新中国，没有共产党就没有新中国." This year marks the centenary of the founding of the Communist Party of China. The whole country is brimming with joy, and there is an interest in so-called red tourism. I, for one, certainly shan't be missing out, which is why today I shall start my very own red jaunt. March on, comrades!
The lofty peaks of Mount Wuzhi and the banks of the river Wenquan are important symbols of Hainan's red history. The city of Wuzhishan is well known for its red past, as it was here that the Chongya column held aloft the red flag for 23 years without faltering.
There is a Hainan revolutionary classic whose title roughly translates as "I love Mount Wuzhi and the river Wenquan," and among its many inspiring lyrics are "Red gun in hand, I promise to defend this land. Hainan, my home, to thee I sing this song." The ballad tells the courageous story of the people of Wuzhishan and the role that they played in the liberation of Hainan. I'm now standing at the memorial to the Wuzhishan Revolutionary Base. This place represented a significant force during Hainan's liberation struggle, being as it was the headquarters of the Chongya column. It was here that the red flag was hoisted aloft for the first time in Hainan, and it is also the first stop on my red tour.
The memorial to the Wuzhishan Revolutionary Base was opened in 2001 on the grounds of what had been the Chongya Column's command center. The memorial is counted among China's top 100 key red tourist spots.
在解放之前，五指山区包含了白沙保亭乐东山县，是海南黎族苗族的聚居地。在20世纪40年代，中共匈牙地方组织在党的领导下，开辟了五指山革命根据地，并带领匈牙居民配合野战军渡海作战，创造了孤岛奋战23年红旗不倒的奇迹，最终解放了海南。
Walking along the main path within the memorial park, I noticed that stone statues are clearly visible on both sides. These are busts of Chongya's revolutionary leaders who conducted operations in Wuzhishan's central base area.
现在我们左手边的是党政领导人冯白驹、李明、黄康、刘修吉，我们右手边的是琼崖纵队领导人庄田、李正亚、吴克之、马白山。冯白驹是琼崖武装革命和根据地的创建人之一，被周恩来誉为琼崖人民的地面旗帜。
To commemorate the victory won in the Chongya Revolution, a monument has been built. The structure is 23 meters in height, which symbolizes the 23 years during which the red flag in Hainan did not fall.
现在我们看到的是纪念园的主体纪念碑，从侧面看，它像一面迎风飘扬的红旗。主碑突出山的形状，远看像一团火焰，寓意五指山星星之火何以燎原，尽是油缸香，寓意香港之旅出政权。碑高23米。
哦，我知道，代表23年红旗不倒。
对。
Inside the memorial to the Wuzhishan Revolutionary Base is an exhibition hall, which depicts the revolutionary events for visitors by means of pictorial displays and relics from the period.
1939年，日军侵占海南岛，琼崖国民党当局退到五指山区，对黎族、苗族人民残酷压迫。为了反抗，我们黎族首领王国兴带领着黎族、苗族同胞，发动了震撼群雄的白沙起义。请看我们后面的这个图片， 这个是当时黎族苗族同胞拿枪拿剑，挑着扁担食物，参加反抗国民党。对，
很勇敢的样子。
王国兴呢，在我们海南岛是很有名的，很多地方是以他命名的，比如说那个国兴中学啊。
是不是海口的那个国兴大道也是啊？
对。
原来如此，长知识了。以前我以为这是说对中国的一个祝福哈。
Black and white photos adorn the walls of the exhibition hall, along with combat equipment used in bygone battles. These all vividly portray the courage and indomitable revolutionary spirit of Chongya's people and army.
这栋简陋的泥墙茅顶房是我们复原琼崖纵队司令部。现在我们眼前所看到的是冯白驹等领导指挥3大工事的情形。
那同志们在开会，不要打扰他们了。
后往后走。好，现在我们看到的是冯白驹在根据地睡过的床和他办公用过的桌子。
是他真的睡过的床。
对。这个床跟桌子呢，它是有那个故事的。冯白驹之前要离开这个根据地到海口工作的时候，他把他的床跟桌子留给他的最要好的朋友，然后在我们要开陈列馆的时候，就把它征集过来。
From the Battle of Yezhajai in 1927 to the first shot being fired in Chongya's armed struggle, Hainan was eventually officially liberated in 1950 after a protracted liberation struggle that lasted for 23 years. The many courageous deeds and stories of bravery that featured along its revolutionary course are remembered by Hainan's people to this day. Just a stone's throw away from the Wuzhishan revolutionary base lies the village of Tangan. Not only is it situated in attractive surroundings, the marks of revolution can be found all around.
他去打仗那里，为了战士们冲得快，打得消灭敌人，他自己瞬间的在铁丝网那里爬上去，把那个铁丝网也让战士们从他的背后跑进去。
72-year-old Wang Wenxin is a lifelong party member. When he has free time, he enjoys sitting under shady trees and recounting revolutionary tales of bravery to local children.
我小那时候，我们村有一个老战士，老红军的，他经常和我们讲故事。那时候是没有电视啊，没什么广播了，就是爱找一晚上的去找老人，叫他讲个故事。我小那时候是大概有初中、初一那样的，我受他们感动了。当时那时候他们打仗，我们青年的要想去当兵参军。
The acts of these revolutionary fighters and their indefatigable spirit have had a profound effect on Wang Wenxin. They inspired him to join the People's Liberation Army, thereby fulfilling his duty to his country and party.
这是我的战友，他是长江的人。
长江县的。
长江县的，这个是我的。
这是什么时候拍的？
退伍前1年拍的，1974年，我75年退伍。
那这个呢？
这个是去年拍的。
去年拍的。
就在我们村委会那里。
我怎么感觉这个比这个还更有精神一点？Well, I think the old stories that Comrade Wang tells, not only his own children and grandchildren, but also the children here in the village, are really worth keeping and holding on to. It's super to see these old traditions being handed on down. And even though he left the army in 1975, it's great also to see that he keeps the old military and revolutionary traditions alive in his heart.
Clutching several photos, the memories come flooding back to Wang Wenxin. Having talked about his military background, he recalls what the village used to look like when it was used by the base as its reserve land.
就是革命军基地啊，他就在我们村里，他就搞个在那里是搞个纺织厂咯，还有卫生院咯，这个地方有小学啊。
小学是吧？
那个小学那时候我们长大也看不到，他就搬到
搬走了。
搬走了。
Listening to Comrade Wang's colourful accounts only adds to my knowledge of the Hainan that I already know so well. I then go with Comrade Wang to the village's Maogui Primary School, where they just so happen to be holding a flag-raising ceremony.
Well, I've seen quite a lot of flag-raising ceremonies in my time, and regardless of where it is or what the flag is, it's always done with a certain dignity and solemnity. And seeing the expressions on the children's faces is both striking and really quite moving.
72 years ago, the first five-starred red flag, that is the national flag of the People's Republic of China, was raised in Hainan's Wuzhishan Revolutionary Base. Today, seeing these young flag bearers hoisting the crimson banner before me fills me with a palpable sense of hope.
Having learned so much about red history, I think it's now time for me to try some of Wuzhishan's very special red tea. Wuzhishan is shrouded in mist and rain for much of the year, but retains just the right balance of moisture, warmth, and sunlight. The lightly acidic soil is exceptionally fertile, and its natural preconditions for tea growing mean that this is China's most southerly, high-altitude tea-producing area. The exceptional quality of Wuzhishan tea is thanks in large part to its outstanding natural environment.
The little village of Shuiman in Wuzhishan is China's highest altitude island tea-producing area. If Wuzhishan is heaven on earth, then Yexian Tea Garden must be up there on cloud 9.
Oh, it's absolutely beautiful here and so quiet, except for that bird song. Can you hear it? I'm afraid me suddenly turning up here is going to ruin the silence and somehow destroy the equilibrium.
你好，
你好，
你是来喝茶的吗？
不，我是来找茶姐嘛。
哦，你找郑总，他在山上呢，你先进来喝茶，等他一下吧。
我能不能上这个茶山去找他呢？
你沿着这条小路往前走就是茶山。
好啊，那我先过去了啊。
等下回来喝茶吧。
好啊，好，
好，
谢谢，
拜拜。
哎，拜拜。Let's go.
Making my way up along the narrow path, I can hear a loud and clear voice. Tea Sister, as she is affectionately known in these parts, goes by the real name of Zheng Lijuan. She has spent the last 20 years here in the upper reaches of Wuzhishan's Shuiman village, perfecting her organic Yexian red tea, which has now made quite a name for itself.
五指山的原始雨林，我们是林茶护养。原始雨林是属于热带雨林国家公园，我们是不可以去触碰它的。这个林子保护好了以后，它就形成了一道天然的屏障，它可以把北方来的冷的空气阻隔在山的北面，冬天我们就不会有霜冻。林子大，它能够释放出很多很多的负氧离子，能够改善我们周边的空气。然后蜜蜂采蜜，蜘蛛来这里拉网结网，这个就是一个生物循环的一个良性的。虫吃虫，然后人就吃最安全的茶叶。
The climatic conditions in Shuiman are ideal for growing tea. The oxygen content of the air is high, and there is not much frost in winter and a lot of cloud in both summer and autumn, with misty or overcast days accounting for over 200 in a year. These outstanding environmental conditions have imbued Wuzhishan's tea leaves with an excellent natural quality.
我们的茶啊，现在看到这个很高很大的，满身结满果子的，这个就是我们本地的野生水满大叶茶。其实它是海南大叶种啊，你看，这是华茶16号，它的俗名叫水满茶。
水满茶
啊，在我们国家的2种排名，它排在第16位。
Thanks to the unique climate as well as the broad biodiversity here, Wuzhishan red tea is endowed with its own characteristics of amber color with a milk and honey fragrance.
沏好以后，我们要观茶色了。您看看这什么颜色？
用英文我知道怎么说，amber
就是琥珀色，要晶莹剔透。我们观完茶的，看完汤色以后，你就可以闻香气了。你现在端起杯，你可以闻一下。
我的鼻子不太灵，是不是有奶香味还是？
有那种甜甜的、糯糯的、
就是偏
甜甜的香。
There are several things to bear in mind when tasting tea. Firstly, the color is important. Then, there is the aroma. Actually tasting the tea is the third step, and it should be done in 3 mouthfuls.
要让你的茶汤在你的口腔里面打转，搓一下，转一个圈。那你现在是不是甜甜的啦？有甜味出来了吧？
有点吧。
啊，一入口，你舌尖一碰到这个茶汤，其实已经感觉到有甜了。很甜，对不对？
现在比上一次甜。
Zheng Lijuan knows everything there is to know about tea and tea culture. She is such an expert, I ought to be calling her Dr. Tea. Zheng Lijuan's passion does not stop at tea. She deeply loves her home, Wuzhishan, and on hearing about my red journey, she begins to recount her own red story.
我的外公外婆啊，就是祖国一解放，他就从海外回来，建设祖国、建设海南岛的第一批爱国华侨。然后我的父亲呢，是海南1950年解放，城外有2个人，红小鬼，就是小孩就。因为他们读过书，也会讲海南话，也会懂一点国语，带的部队呢就来到黎族地区就搞土改，他就留在了这个山区的工作，家里面的这种给我们的这种教育，就是对这片海南这个土地，对我们自己祖国这个国家的这种骨子里面的热爱，不是挂在嘴巴上，我们是实实在在的。没有办法，这是你的家园，你的祖国，你的家，那你指望谁来帮你去建？肯定你自己要去努力，要去养、守护它、建设它。
Zheng Lijuan is so passionate about Wuzhishan red tea that she has inspired local villagers to grow tea themselves and thus leave poverty behind them.
我们必须要按规范化的去做，推动当地的农民用科学的方法来栽培。管理，我们自己也种，我也教老百姓种，育了苗就免费发放给我们自己的，先是我们自己的员工，然后再是在职里面、村里面，只要他们想种，有地，我们就把苗送给他。
Sitting here on the veranda, taking in the views, sipping on my red tea, and attentively listening to Tea Sisters' tales has really added to my red journey, making it all the richer and all the more vivid.
Some people say if you haven't been to Wuzhishan, then you haven't been to Hainan. And when you do come to Wuzhishan, be sure to stop by the village of Shuiman for a visit to Wuzhishan Tropical Rainforest Park. So without further ado, off we go!
Forest coverage in Wuzhishan is over 86%, and it is home to one of the world's 3 best preserved tropical rainforests. The number of negative oxygen ions per cubic meter of air is around 20,000, and it is often described as boasting the best air quality in Hainan.
This is the Guanshan Tai, or the mountain viewing platform. People coming here cannot help but linger and lose themselves, for it is here that the finest views are to be had. Directly behind me is Mount Wuzhi, and on a clear day you can see the 5 fingers of Five Finger Mountain in all their magnificent entirety. And it seems as though today I'm not in luck. Haha. Wuzhishan.
If the grandeur and majesty of Mount Wuzhi impress you, then the gentleness of the rainforest will cause you to stop and linger. Wuzhishan Tropical Rainforest Park sports towering ancient trees, densely twining vines, and exotic flowers and rare herbs at every turn. Strolling among the verdure, one perceives the babbling mountain brooks and the delicate breezes.
Walking along this wooden plank pathway and drawing a deep breath, just makes me realise how fresh the air in the rainforest is. So fresh, in fact, it makes me come over all giddy.
Here in this primitive tropical rainforest, the playful sound of the water lifts your spirits as a certain coolness descends, bathing you from head to toe. The thick forest vegetation provides abundant water reserves for the whole of Wuzhishan.
People in Hainan traditionally regard Mount Uzhi as a sacred place, even as the source of life itself. The Changhua, one of Hainan's 3 major rivers, along with the Shuiman River, both rise from the mountain springs located in Mount Uzhi's tropical rainforests. Originating here in Shuiman, this river finally converges to form the Changhua, nurturing thousands of Hainan's people. And this is where it all begins.
Being fortunate enough to be surrounded by mountains and rivers, and being able to enjoy the fresh air in Wuzhishan are of course not only thanks to Mother Nature, but are dependent in part upon everybody's efforts on ecological conservation. During my tour of Wuzhishan, I paid a visit to the Memorial Park, heard tales of revolution from committed party members, sampled signature Wuzhishan red tea, and had a taste of Wuzhishan's revolutionary culture. The outstanding environment and delightful people are all grateful for the sacrifices made by martyrs of the revolution who have not only safeguarded the area's beautiful scenery, but its peace and tranquility too. May there be no more war in this world, and may peace break out everywhere.
This is 海南卫视。